You know, we didn't need chocolate makers to convince us that fruit and nuts make a great combination of flavour and of texture. Plus, most fruits provide a source of vitamin C and dietary fibre, and they're mostly low in fat. Nuts are mostly high in fat, but the good fats, monounsaturated and polyunsaturated, and most have significant amounts of vitamins. So they're a real treat. Today's Consuming Passions recipe features the almond in a simple pudding which will be partnered by a compote of fruit. Absolutely delicious, an all-season duo made for each other, or at least will be in a moment. First to the almonds. One way of dealing with these is by buying them skin on, then blanching them briefly in boiling water, rubbing the skins off, and then pounding the almonds into a pulp or meal. Very time-consuming, and not the sort of consuming we're interested in. Instead, a couple of 100 grams of almond meal, bought like this from the supermarket, will be absolutely perfect. Now that's allowed to simmer gently in about 3 cups of milk, around 750 mils. I'm using a reduced fat milk, that's fine for this dish. I also put in a little almond essence, a couple of teaspoons for extra almondness, or you could use vanilla essence. Now while this is simmering ever so gently, I mix up a couple of egg yolks with a couple of tablespoons of caster sugar and stir until the sugar has dissolved. At which point I stir in about a tablespoon of corn flour and stir until smooth. Then the milk at boiling point is poured in, stirring all the time, and that's the basic pudding mixture. I pour this into a buttered or oiled oven-proof dish, place the dish in a baking tin, and pour hot water into the tin so it comes halfway up the dish. A final grating of nutmeg, my favourite spice, and it's into the oven. 160 degrees for about an hour, and that gives me time to make the fruit compote. I like to use blackcurrants as a base for my fruit compote. They're very high in vitamin C, about 200 grams, and if they're out of season, I use frozen ones. They freeze very well. They're cooked with some sugar, a little honey, and I add a couple of lime leaves or a lemon leaf, or as a last resort, if leaves are out of the question, a strip of lemon peel. The blackcurrants only need a few minutes of gentle cooking before I add seasonal fruits. These could be peaches or plums, apples or pears. Today I'm using plums and apples. They'll just be poached to soften a little, not long enough to turn it into a gluggy mush. One final add-on, optional but superb, which comes at serving time, is my 3-nut crunchel. 1 part ground pistachios to 1 part macadamias to 1 part almonds, mixed with about a tablespoon of caster sugar and a sprinkling, about a 1/10 part of cinnamon. I like to make a big batch of this confectionery. It keeps very well in an airtight container and can be used with heaps of desserts like the almond pudding. Once cooked, the almond pudding is allowed to cool before being served. And it could be served on its own or with that delightful fruit compote. A couple of spoons of that, sprinkled with crunchel, which has more nuts than a car factory. And there it is, sweet and tart, smooth and crunchy, a feast for the eye and the palate, and another triumph for Consuming Passions. Till next time, bon appetit.